She told me to sleep on the couch in my own house. I'm William Davis, but everyone calls me Billy. For 3 years, my daughter-in-law Victoria treated me like worthless trash, hiding me from her fancy friends, making me eat alone like some charity case. She had no idea that the poor old plumber she was humiliating had quietly given away $67 million to every charity in our city. What happened when I decided to stop being invisible will make you question everything you think you know about power and respect. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just smiled and made 3 phone calls. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. This story starts with the biggest mistake Victoria ever made, assuming that a man in $15 Walmart shirts couldn't possibly own the 8,400 square foot mansion she called home. Let me paint you a picture of how Victoria saw me. Every morning I'd wake up at 5:30, same as I had for 40 years. Old habits from my plumbing days. I'd put on my faded work shirt, the blue ones from Walmart, 3 for $45. Victoria would wrinkle her nose like I smelled bad. "Billy," she'd say, not looking up from her phone, "could you use the back door? I'm expecting the yoga instructor." The back door, in my own house. I'd nod and head to the kitchen, where she'd already moved my coffee mug to the counter by the sink, not at the breakfast table. That was for family. She drove a 2024 Mercedes S-Class, lease payment $1,800 a month. I knew because I saw the paperwork on the counter. Me, I drove my 2008 Ford F-150, rust spots on the tailgate, bench seat with a tear I'd duct taped 3 years ago. "Embarrassing," she told my son James once. I wasn't supposed to hear. "Your father looks like he's homeless." James just shrugged. "He's harmless, Vic. Give him time to adjust." Adjust to what? Living in my own house? See, here's what neither of them knew. In March 2019, I bought a lottery ticket at Murphy's gas station on Elm Street. $1. Powerball jackpot, $156 million. I won. After taxes, I walked away with $93 million. But I didn't buy a yacht, didn't get a Ferrari, didn't even tell my son. Instead, I did something that would have blown Victoria's perfectly manicured mind. I started giving it away, not all at once, quietly, carefully, through something I called the Hope Foundation. While Victoria spent her days at the country club complaining about the help, I was funding new equipment for the fire department. $23,000 for thermal imaging cameras. $47,000 for a new rescue truck. While she got her nails done for $200 every other week, I was paying for school lunches for 300 kids at Lincoln Elementary. $18,000 every semester, free. While she hosted dinner parties and made me eat upstairs so the guests wouldn't be uncomfortable, I was quietly building a pediatric wing at Children's Hospital. $2.3 million. They wanted to name it after me. I said no. You see, I learned something in my 40 years of fixing broken pipes. The most important work happens where nobody can see it. Behind walls, under foundations. Keep the system running and nobody notices. Let it fail, and everybody suffers. I was keeping a lot of systems running. But Victoria, she thought I was the failure. "Billy, honey," she'd say, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Maybe it's time to look into assisted living. You know, somewhere more appropriate for someone your age." Someone my age. I was 61. She was 35. "James works so hard," she'd continue, "and this house is really too much for us to manage with." Well, with you here, too much to manage. The 8-bedroom colonial I'd bought and paid for in cash. Every Wednesday, I'd tell her I had appointments. "Doctor visits?" she'd ask, hopeful. Something like that. She never asked what kind of appointments. If she had, she might have learned I was meeting with hospital administrators, school principals, and charity directors. People who knew me as Mr. Davis, the quiet philanthropist who'd transformed their organizations. But Victoria never asked. She just counted the days until I'd be gone. What she didn't know was that those Wednesday meetings were about to become very relevant to her perfectly planned life. By September 2024, Victoria's campaign to erase me had escalated. It started small, moving my mail to a pile by the back door. Accidentally, forgetting to save me dinner. Scheduling her personal trainer during the 1 hour I like to watch the evening news. But then she discovered social media. "Oh my God, you guys," she'd say into her phone, recording herself in our kitchen. "Living with a boomer is like having a confused grandfather who doesn't understand basic technology." She'd show my flip phone to her followers. "Look at this ancient thing. I keep telling him to get an iPhone, but he says it's too complicated. So cute, right? Cute. Like I was a pet." Her TikTok account, at Victoria Living Lux, had 87,000 followers. She made content about elegant living and handling difficult family situations. In one video, she filmed my work boots by the back door. When you're trying to maintain a certain aesthetic, but your father-in-law thinks he's still on a construction site. The comments were brutal. Girl, why is he even there? Your house is too beautiful for those nasty boots. Time for assisted living, Grandpa. She'd laugh, reading them out loud to her friends during their weekly wine sessions. They'd sit in what she called the good living room, the one she'd declared off-limits to me. You should see him trying to use the smart TV remote, she'd tell them. I found him hitting it against the coffee table yesterday. That was a lie. I knew exactly how to use the remote. I'd programmed the whole system. But the truth didn't matter to Victoria. What mattered was her narrative. Young, sophisticated woman trapped with elderly, obsolete man. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in late September. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some paperwork from the Hope Foundation. Budget reports, thank you letters, grant applications. Spread across the table were documents that would have told anyone paying attention exactly who I was. Victoria walked in with 3 friends, Miranda, Ashley, and Chloe, wine glasses in hand, designer handbags that cost more than most people's rent. Oh, Victoria said, spotting me. I didn't realize you were here. I looked up, just finishing some reading. She glanced at the papers and laughed. Reading? Billy, honey, those look like official documents. Are you pretending to be important again? Her friends giggled. Actually, I said quietly, these are... Shh. Victoria held up her hand. Daddy's trying to play businessman. How adorable. She turned to her friends. He collects random paperwork, makes him feel relevant. Miranda, the one with the Hermes bag, leaned forward. What kind of paperwork? Oh, you know, Victoria waved dismissively. Charity stuff. He thinks he's some kind of philanthropist. More laughter. That's when I realized something crucial. Victoria wasn't just embarrassed by me. She was threatened by me. On some level, she sensed there was more to my story, and her defense mechanism was to humiliate me before anyone could look too closely. Victoria, I said, standing up, maybe we should talk privately. About what, your imaginary important meetings? The room went quiet. Her friends watched like vultures. They're not imaginary. Right, she rolled her eyes. Let me guess, you're secretly rich. You're going to reveal you've been testing me this whole time? The irony was so thick I almost choked on it. Billy, she continued, her voice getting sharper, I've been patient, really patient. But this fantasy world you're living in needs to stop. She picked up one of the Hope Foundation letters, a thank you note from the mayor for funding the new playground at Riverside Park. This is embarrassing, she said, waving it around. You're role-playing being important while James and I are trying to build a real life. That's when she said the words that changed everything. I've been talking to James about your situation. We think it's time for you to find somewhere else to live. The room fell silent. Somewhere else. A senior community, somewhere more appropriate. Where you can play make-believe with people your own age. Her friends nodded sympathetically, like they were witnessing a difficult but necessary intervention. Victoria, I said very quietly, you might want to think about that. Think about what? About who actually owns this house. She laughed, a sharp, confident sound. Nice try, Billy. But James inherited this place when his mother died. It's been in the Davis family for generations. Wrong. But I didn't correct her. Instead, I gathered my papers, stood up, and headed for the door. Where are you going? She called after me. To make some phone calls. 3 days later, Victoria cornered me in the kitchen with an ultimatum. I was making coffee when she walked in, carrying a manila folder and wearing her serious business expression. Designer jeans that cost more than my monthly grocery budget, silk blouse, pearl earrings that caught the morning light. Billy, we need to talk. I poured my coffee into the same chipped mug I'd been using for 15 years. What's on your mind? She set the folder on the counter with a sharp tap. The gala. Every year, our city's social elite gathered for the Elegance for Education charity gala. $500 per plate, black tie. The kind of event where Victoria shined brightest. What about it? James and I are hosting a table this year. 10 seats, very important people. I nodded, waiting. Hospital board members, city council, the mayor's wife, people who matter. Sounds nice. It is nice. It's also... She paused, choosing her words carefully. It's not really appropriate for you to be there. I set down my mug. Excuse me?
Billy, honey, these people don't know you. And frankly, first impressions matter. James's career, our reputation. You don't want me at the gala. I want you to understand that sometimes family means making sacrifices for the greater good. The greater good. As if my absence was some noble gesture.
Where exactly would I go during this gala? Victoria brightened, like she'd been hoping I'd ask. I've arranged for you to spend the evening with Harold next door. He's lonely since his wife passed. You two can watch sports or whatever you normally do. Harold was 83 and half deaf, Victoria's idea of my peer group. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to hide at the neighbor's house while you host a charity event in my own home. It's not hiding, it's being considerate. Considerate of what? Of the fact that this is about more than just one evening, Billy. This is about James's future, our future. She opened the folder and pulled out what looked like real estate listings. I've been researching some lovely senior communities, places where you'd be much happier, where you'd fit in. The listings were for retirement homes.
One in particular was circled in red. Sunset Manor, independent living for active seniors. Starting at $4,000 per month. You've been busy. I care about you, Billy. I want what's best for everyone. I looked at the listings. Sunset Manor, Golden Years Village, Peaceful Pines Retirement Community. These are nice, I said. Expensive. James and I would help with the costs, of course. We're not heartless. Help with the costs. Using what money exactly? James made $60,000 a year as an insurance adjuster. Victoria had no job. Their combined monthly expenses exceeded their income by about $3,000. That's generous of you. The gala is Saturday night, she continued. I need to know your decision by tomorrow. My decision about what? About whether you're going to cooperate. The word hung in the air like a threat. And if I don't cooperate? Victoria's mask slipped just slightly.
For a moment, I saw the calculation behind her concerned expression. Then things might become uncomfortable. Uncomfortable how? Billy, you're not on the lease. You're not on any of the utilities. Legally speaking, you're essentially a guest who's overstayed his welcome. A guest. In my own house. I see. I don't want it to come to that, but James and I have worked too hard to let sentiment hold us back. She said sentiment like it was a disease. I walked to the window and looked out at the backyard. 8 acres of perfectly maintained lawn. The garden where my late wife Margaret had planted roses 23 years ago. The oak tree where we'd hung a swing for James when he was 7. You know what's interesting, Victoria? What? You keep talking about this being James's house. It is James's house. Did he ever show you the deed? She hesitated, just for a second. Of course. When we got married, we went through all the paperwork.
All of it? Yes.
Including the original purchase documents? Another hesitation. Billy, I don't see why. Because if you had seen those documents, you'd know something very important. I turned back to face her. What? You'd know that James never inherited this house. The color drained from her face. That's impossible. Is it? His mother left it to him when she died. He told me. Margaret did leave James something when she died. She left him the house we lived in on Oak Street. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, worth about $200,000. Victoria stared at me. This house, I continued, I bought in cash, September 15th, 2019. The deed is in my name, only my name. You're lying. Am I? You couldn't afford this house. You're a retired plumber. You're right. I couldn't afford it on my pension. I walked to the kitchen drawer and pulled out a single document, folded once, worn from handling. But I could afford it with this.
I handed her the paper. She unfolded it with shaking hands. Her eyes moved across the text, and I watched her face change as the words sank in. Pennsylvania Lottery Commission. William Davis. Powerball jackpot. $156 million. She looked up at me. This is fake. Check the date, Victoria. March 12th, 2019. 6 months before I bought this house. She stared at the certificate like it might burst into flames. So here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. I'm going to that gala on Saturday night, and you're going to introduce me to all your important friends. Billy, because it turns out, Victoria, that I know every single person on your guest list. After our kitchen confrontation, Victoria avoided me for 2 days, but she was watching. I could feel her eyes tracking my movements, trying to decode what she'd missed. The lottery certificate had shaken her, but she wasn't ready to believe it changed anything fundamental. Wednesday morning, like clockwork, I got dressed for my weekly appointments. "Where are you going?" Victoria asked, appearing in the hallway as I headed for the door. "My meetings." "What meetings, Billy?" "Really? What meetings?" For 3 years, she'd never cared enough to ask. Now suddenly my Wednesday schedule was fascinating. People I need to see. What people? I paused at the door. "You'll find out Saturday night." That afternoon, while Victoria was at her Pilates class, the phone rang. "Mr. Davis, this is Dr. Sarah Williams from Children's Hospital." I'd been expecting her call. "Hello, Dr. Williams. I wanted to confirm you'll be attending the gala on Saturday. We're so excited to finally meet you in person." "I'll be there." "Wonderful. And the announcement about the new cardiac wing? You're still comfortable with us revealing your contribution?" "That depends." "On what?" "On how the evening goes." 20 minutes later, another call. "Billy Davis speaking." "Mr. Davis, this is Principal Michael Brown from Lincoln Elementary about the gala." "Yes?" "The families we're honoring, the ones whose children benefited from the lunch program you funded, they're all going to be there. They still don't know who their benefactor is, but we're hoping." "We'll see, Principal Brown." "Of course. But, sir, these families, they've been writing thank you letters for 2 years. Letters addressed to the angel who feeds our children. They'd love to thank you in person. Maybe they'll get their chance." By Thursday, the calls were coming every few hours. Fire Chief Patricia Miller wanting to coordinate the presentation of the new rescue truck I'd funded. The mayor's office asking about my preference for seating arrangements. The hospital foundation confirming the plaque dedication. Victoria heard some of these conversations. I could see her hovering in the hallway, straining to catch fragments. "Who keeps calling you?" she finally asked. "People? What people?" "People who know my name." Friday afternoon, Victoria was in the living room with her friends, doing final preparations for the gala. Seating charts spread across the coffee table. A guest list that read like the city's who's who. The phone rang. "Billy Davis speaking." "Mr. Davis, this is Jennifer Martinez from the Hope Foundation Board." I'd established the board 3 years ago. 5 members, all sworn to secrecy about my identity. Tomorrow night, that secrecy would end. "Hello, Jennifer. Final confirmation for tomorrow's presentation. You're ready to go public?" "I'm ready. The documentation is all prepared. Tax records, donation receipts, impact statements, 3 years of contributions totaling $67.2 million. Victoria had gone very quiet in the living room. "That's correct. Mr. Davis, what you've done for this community, when people learn the truth tomorrow night, it's going to change everything. I'm counting on it." After I hung up, Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Billy, that phone call." "Yes?" "They mentioned $67 million. "They did. That's not possible." "Isn't it?" She sat down heavily at the kitchen table, the same table where just days earlier she'd called my paperwork make-believe. "You're really him, aren't you? You're really the Hope Foundation. What gave it away? The way everyone talks to you. Like you're—" She struggled for the word. "Important?" "Yes." I poured myself a glass of water and sat across from her. "Victoria, can I ask you something?" She nodded. "In 3 years of living in this house, did you ever wonder why a retired plumber could afford 8 bedrooms and 8 acres? James said it was family property. Did you ever ask to see the deed?" "No." "Did you ever wonder why I got so much mail from charities? I thought you were on mailing lists. Did you ever ask yourself why the mayor personally delivered my Christmas card last year?" She stared at me. "You didn't ask because you'd already decided who I was." Poor old Billy. Confused grandpa. Embarrassment in work boots. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did. You absolutely meant it." I stood up and walked to the window. "Tomorrow night, you're going to meet the real me, and every person at that gala is going to understand exactly who's been living under this roof. Billy, I'm sorry. If I had known. If you had known I was rich, you would have treated me differently." She didn't deny it. "The question is, Victoria, what does that say about you?" Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp October evening that made even I appreciate Victoria's choice in venues. Our house had been transformed. White tents on the back lawn. String lights that turned 8 acres into something magical. Professional caterers who'd been working since dawn to create what Victoria called an unforgettable experience. She'd spent 4 hours getting ready. Hair by someone who charged $300. Makeup by someone who charged $200.
a dress that cost more than most people's monthly salary. "How do I look?" she asked James as they posed for photos by the grand staircase. "Perfect, babe. Absolutely perfect." I watched from the kitchen doorway, wearing my cleanest pair of khakis and a button-down shirt Margaret had bought me 5 years ago. In Victoria's world, I looked exactly like what I was supposed to be, the embarrassing relative who didn't belong. Guests began arriving at 6:30. Black cars dropping off women in evening gowns and men in tuxedos. People whose names appeared in the society pages. People who'd paid $500 to eat dinner and feel good about supporting education. People who had no idea their host was about to become a footnote in his own story. Victoria stationed herself at the front door, playing the perfect hostess. James stood beside her, proud and nervous, wearing a tuxedo they'd rented for $250. "Welcome to our home," Victoria said to each arriving couple. "We're so honored you could join us." Our home, the phrase she'd practiced all week. I stayed in the kitchen, watching through the window as the back lawn filled with tables and conversation. The tent was elegant. The flowers were beautiful. The whole thing looked exactly like the kind of event Victoria had dreamed of hosting. 7 o'clock, the cocktail hour. Guests mingled around the bar setup, drinks in hand, admiring the property. I could see Victoria moving through the crowd, accepting compliments on her beautiful home. "Victoria, darling, this place is incredible. How long have you lived here? The gardens are absolutely stunning." Each compliment fed her performance. She glowed with ownership, with belonging, with finally being where she thought she deserved to be. 7:30. Time for my entrance. I walked through the living room, past the formal dining room, and out onto the back terrace. 300 people in evening wear, scattered across pristine lawn under twinkling lights. The first person to notice me was Dr. Sarah Williams. "Billy?" She squinted in my direction. "Billy Davis." Conversations near her stopped. "Is that really you?" Dr. Williams approached, her face breaking into a smile. "I can't believe it. You look exactly like I pictured." Victoria, who'd been talking to the mayor's wife, turned at the sound of my name. "Dr. Williams," I said, shaking her hand. "Good to see you." "See him?" Mayor Patricia Sullivan joined the conversation. "Sarah, you know this gentleman?" "Know him?" "Pat, this is Billy Davis, the Billy Davis." The mayor's expression changed instantly. "Mr. Davis? From the Hope Foundation?" "That's right." More people were turning now, a ripple of recognition moving through the crowd. Victoria appeared at my elbow, confusion written across her face. "Billy, what are you doing out here?" Before I could answer, Fire Chief Patricia Miller approached, her face beaming. "Mr. Davis, I was hoping I'd get to meet you tonight." "Chief Miller, how's the new rescue truck working out?" "Perfectly. The thermal imaging cameras you funded saved 2 lives last month." Victoria's grip tightened on my arm. "I'm sorry," she said to the chief. "I think there's been some confusion." "Confusion?" Dr. Williams looked puzzled. "This is my father-in-law," Victoria explained. "Billy, he's not involved with any foundation." The silence that followed was deafening. Principal Brown joined the circle carrying a folder. "Actually," he said gently, "Mr. Davis has been very involved." "The lunch program at Lincoln Elementary? The one that's fed 300 children for 2 years? Mr. Davis funded the entire thing." Victoria's face went white. "That's impossible." "Ma'am," the principal continued, "I have 18 months of correspondence with Mr. Davis. Checks signed by him personally. He's donated over $400,000 to our school alone." More people gathered. Hospital board members, city council representatives, charity directors, all gravitating toward the man they knew as their anonymous benefactor. "Billy," Victoria whispered, "what's happening?" "What's happening," I said quietly, "is that you're about to learn who you've been living with." Dr. Williams pulled out her phone and showed Victoria a photo. "This was taken at the hospital, groundbreaking last year. Mr. Davis turned the first shovel of dirt for the pediatric wing he funded. $2.3 million. Victoria stared at the photo. Me in my work clothes, holding a golden shovel while she and James had been honeymooning in Italy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mayor Sullivan said, raising her voice to address the growing crowd, "I think it's time we properly introduced our host." The conversations around us died. "This is William Davis, chairman and founder of the Hope Foundation. Over the past 3 years, Mr. Davis has donated $67.2 million to organizations throughout our city." The gasp that went up from the crowd was audible. The Children's Hospital Wing,
the school lunch programs, the fire department equipment, the homeless shelter renovation, the playground at Riverside Park, all of it funded by the gentleman standing right here. Victoria was hyperventilating. Mr. Davis, the mayor continued, has specifically requested that tonight's gala be the official end of his anonymity. He wants our community to know who's been their guardian angel. 300 people burst into applause. Victoria grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Billy, this is crazy. You can't be serious. Dead serious. But you live in my house. You sleep on my couch. You're just... Just what, Victoria? She couldn't finish the sentence. Because standing there, surrounded by the entire social elite of our city, watching them treat me like the most important person in the room, she finally understood. I wasn't the embarrassment. She was. What happened next was better than any movie. Mayor Sullivan raised her champagne glass and called for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, before we sit down for dinner, I have a very special announcement. 300 people turned toward the makeshift stage. Victoria stood frozen beside me, her face cycling through emotions I'd never seen before. Shock, disbelief, rising panic. 3 years ago, the mayor began, our city received an anonymous gift that changed everything. Someone operating through the Hope Foundation began systematically addressing our most pressing needs. Dr. Williams stepped forward, carrying a thick folder. Tonight, with Mr. Davis's permission, we're going to share the full scope of his generosity. She opened the folder and began reading. Lincoln Elementary School Lunch Program, $437,000, ensuring no child goes hungry during the school day. Applause rippled through the crowd. Victoria's breathing became shallow. Children's Hospital Pediatric Wing, $2.3 million, state-of-the-art cardiac care for our youngest patients. More applause, louder now. Fire Department thermal imaging equipment and rescue vehicle, $268,000, technology that's already saved 11 lives. The applause was building momentum. People were looking at me with something approaching awe. Riverside Park playground renovation, $145,000, giving our children a safe place to play. Homeless shelter expansion, $890,000, doubling our capacity to house families in crisis. Each announcement hit Victoria like a physical blow. She kept looking between me and the crowd, as if waiting for someone to reveal this was all an elaborate joke. Principal Brown stepped forward. Mr. Davis, on behalf of the 300 children who eat lunch every day because of your generosity, we have something for you. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, approached carrying a handmade poster, construction paper and crayon drawings. Thank you, Food Angel, it read, surrounded by hearts and stick figures. Emma here wrote you a letter, Principal Brown said. She doesn't know your name, but she's been writing to the angel who feeds us for 2 years. Emma looked up at me with serious brown eyes. Are you really the food angel? I knelt down to her level. I guess I am. Thank you for my lunches. My mom says without you I'd be hungry at school. The crowd was dead silent. You're welcome, Emma. She handed me the poster and whispered, My teacher says angels are invisible, but you're right here. When I stood up, there were tears in people's eyes, including mine, but not Victoria's. Victoria looked like she was about to vomit. Dr. Williams continued reading from the folder. Senior Center Meal Program, $325,000. Public Library Renovation, $412,000. Police Department Community Outreach Program, $196,000. The numbers kept coming, each one representing a problem solved, a life improved, a community need met. And finally, Dr. Williams said, Mr. Davis has just authorized a new initiative, affordable housing development on the old Morrison lot, $15 million, 60 units for working families. The applause was thunderous now. People were standing. Some were crying. Mayor Sullivan raised her hand for quiet. Mr. Davis, would you like to say something? 300 faces turned toward me. Victoria beside me, trembling with what I realized was rage, not shame. Thank you, I began. When I won the lottery 5 years ago, I had a choice. I could buy things, or I could build things. I chose to build. I chose to build better schools, safer streets, healthier children. I chose to build a community where everyone has a chance. I paused, looking out at the crowd. But I also learned something important. Real wealth isn't what you own. It's what you give away. The applause was deafening. And that's when Victoria finally exploded. Stop! She screamed, her voice cutting through the applause like a knife. Just stop! The crowd fell silent. This is insane, she continued, her careful composure shattered.
You people are treating him like some kind of hero, but he's just a confused old man living in my house." The silence was horrifying. "Victoria," I said quietly, "please don't do this." "Don't do what? Tell the truth? You want these people to know the truth about St. Billy?" She turned to face the crowd. "He sleeps on our couch because he can't afford his own place. He wears the same 5 shirts because that's all he owns. He drives a 20-year-old truck held together with duct tape." People were staring at her in shocked silence. "You think he's some generous philanthropist? He's a broke old man playing make-believe with fake documents?" "Victoria, stop!" James appeared at her side, his face red with embarrassment. "No, I won't stop. I've been supporting this man for 3 years while he pretends to be important." Dr. Williams stepped forward. "Ma'am, I've personally processed Mr. Davis's donations. I can assure you—" "You're all being conned," Victoria shouted. "Yeah. He's got you believing his fantasy because you want to believe it." That's when I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. Not the flip phone Victoria had mocked. My real phone. The iPhone 15 Pro I'd been hiding for 3 years. I opened the banking app and handed it to Dr. Williams. "Show them the balance." Dr. Williams looked at the screen and went white. "Oh my God." "Show them." She turned the phone toward the crowd. "Current balance $26.7 million. The gasp was audible. Scroll down to the transaction history. Dr. Williams swiped through months of donations, hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing out regularly, every Wednesday after my appointments. "This is impossible," Victoria whispered. "Scroll to the very bottom," I said. "The deposit from March 2019. Dr. Williams found it and read aloud. Pennsylvania Lottery Commission, $93,400,000. Victoria grabbed the phone and stared at the screen. For 30 seconds, nobody moved. Then Victoria looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not embarrassment, not shame, pure, undiluted rage. "You lied to me." "I never lied to you, Victoria. You never asked. You let me think you were poor. You assumed I was poor. There's a difference. You let me humiliate myself. You humiliated yourself." The crowd was watching this exchange like a tennis match. 300 wealthy people witnessing a meltdown in real time. "This whole time," Victoria said, her voice rising again, "you could have told me. You could have saved me from looking like a fool." "When, Victoria? When you told me to use the back door? When you hid me from your friends? When you tried to put me in assisted living? If I had known—" "If you had known I was rich, you would have treated me differently. And that, Victoria, is exactly the problem." Chief Miller stepped forward. "Mem, I think you should stop talking." But Victoria was beyond stopping. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you? St. Billy, the secret philanthropist. Well, you know what? You're still just a lonely old man whose own son doesn't respect him enough to live somewhere else." That hit home. I saw James flinch. "And you," Victoria turned on her husband. "You knew, didn't you? You knew he had money and you let me make a fool of myself. Vic, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. Your father owns this house. This entire time we've been living in his house while I thought it was ours." The crowd was riveted. This was better than any reality show. "And you—" Victoria spun back to me. "You're going to stand there and act like the victim? You manipulated this whole situation?" "Victoria," I said very quietly, "I want you to listen carefully to what I'm about to say. I'm done listening to you. You have 24 hours to find somewhere else to live." The silence was absolute. "This is my house. You are no longer welcome in it. You can't throw me out. Actually, I can, and I am." I turned to address the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. Please, enjoy your dinner. The cause is important, and your support matters." I started walking toward the house. "Billy!" Victoria screamed after me. "You can't do this. I'm family." I stopped and turned back. "No, Victoria. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me. Billy, please. I didn't know." "Exactly. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask. You saw what you wanted to see." And with that, I walked inside, leaving Victoria standing in front of 300 people who now knew exactly who she really was. The dinner continued without me. I watched from the kitchen window as 300 people tried to process what they'd just witnessed. Victoria remained frozen on the lawn for several minutes before James finally led her inside through the side door. They found me in my study going through paperwork. "Dad," James said, his voice careful, "we need to talk." "Do we?"
Victoria stood behind him, her makeup smeared, her perfect hair disheveled. The woman who'd spent 4 hours preparing for her moment of social triumph. "Billy, please," she said. "I was wrong. I admit it. I was completely wrong." "Yes, you were. But you can't throw us out. We don't have anywhere to go." I looked up from my papers. "You have 24 hours to figure it out." "Dad," James stepped forward. "Come on. She made a mistake, but she's family." "Is she, James?" "Because family doesn't treat each other the way Victoria treated me. She didn't know. That's the point. She didn't know because she didn't care to know." Victoria moved closer, desperation creeping into her voice. "Billy, if I had known about the money—" "Stop. Right there." She froze. "Victoria, that sentence tells me everything I need to know about who you are." "What do you mean?" "If you had known about the money, you would have treated me differently, which means your respect was never about me as a person. It was about what I could do for you. That's not fair." "Isn't it? 3 years, Victoria. 3 years of humiliation, mockery, and disrespect. And now, 5 minutes after learning I'm wealthy, you want to apologize?" James sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. "Dad, what do you want us to do?" "I want you to understand something, son. Your wife spent 3 years trying to erase me from your life. She wanted me in assisted living. She hid me from her friends. She made me eat alone in my own house." "I know, but nothing. Do you know what I did during that time? I gave away $67 million to help people. While she was calling me worthless, I was feeding hungry children. While she was embarrassed by my clothes, I was funding life-saving medical equipment." Victoria was crying now. Not the pretty tears of a movie heroine, but the ugly, desperate crying of someone watching their world collapse. "Billy, please. I'll do anything. I'll apologize publicly. I'll make it right." "How, Victoria? How do you make right 3 years of systematic cruelty?" "I don't know, but I'll try." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, guests were still mingling, their conversations probably focused on the drama they'd just witnessed. "There's something else you need to know," I said without turning around. "What?" "That house you wanted to put me in, Sunset Manor?" "Yes. I own it." The silence stretched for 30 seconds. "You own the retirement home?" "I bought it last year. Part of my senior care initiative. I was planning to turn it into affordable housing for elderly residents who couldn't afford traditional assisted living." Victoria made a sound like a wounded animal. "So, when you suggested I move there," I continued, "you were unknowingly trying to put me in my own building." "Billy," James said quietly, "this is getting cruel." "Cruel? James, your wife spent 3 years being cruel to me. I'm just revealing the truth." I turned back to face them. "But here's what's going to happen. Victoria, you have 24 hours to leave this house. James, you have a choice to make." "What choice?" "You can go with her, or you can stay here and rebuild our relationship." "You're making me choose between my wife and my father?" "No, son. Your wife made that choice 3 years ago when she decided I wasn't worthy of basic human dignity." Victoria fell to her knees. "Billy, I'm begging you. I was wrong. I was horrible. But please don't destroy my marriage." "I'm not destroying anything, Victoria. I'm just no longer enabling it." I walked to my desk and pulled out a set of keys. "These are the keys to the apartment above the garage. It's furnished. You can stay there tonight. Tomorrow, you find somewhere else." "Billy, the conversation is over, Victoria." She looked at James, waiting for him to defend her, to fight for their marriage. James looked at me, then at his wife, then back at me. "Dad, give us the night to figure this out." "Of course." After they left, I sat alone in my study, listening to the sounds of the party winding down outside. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. Sunday morning brought consequences. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat on the back terrace where 24 hours earlier, Victoria had humiliated herself in front of 300 people. The lawn was clean. The caterers had done their job well. You'd never know that last night had changed everything. But it had. My phone had 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Dr. Williams. "Billy, thank you for trusting us with your story. The community response has been overwhelming." Mayor Sullivan. "Mr. Davis, I've had calls all morning from people wanting to contribute to your housing initiative." Principal Brown. "Sir, the school board wants to discuss naming opportunities. The families from the lunch program are organizing a thank you event." And then there were the other calls. The ones that told me how quickly news travels in a small city. Victoria's yoga instructor. "Is it true your father-in-law is a millionaire?"
The country club manager. Mr. Davis, we'd like to discuss membership opportunities for your family. Miranda, Ashley, and Chloe, Victoria's wine night friends. Victoria, honey, call us back. We need to talk. But the most telling message came from someone I didn't expect. Mr. Davis, this is Harold from next door. I saw the news coverage this morning. I want you to know, I always thought Victoria was a piece of work.
You're a good man, always have been. News coverage. I turned on the morning show. Good morning, I'm Sarah Chen with Channel 7 News. Last night's charity gala took an unexpected turn when the city's anonymous philanthropist revealed his identity in dramatic fashion. The story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even a mention in the state paper. William Davis, a retired plumber and lottery winner, has donated over $67 million to local charities over 3 years. But the revelation came during a public confrontation with his daughter-in-law, who had been treating him as a burden. They showed clips from the gala. Someone had been recording with their phone, Victoria screaming at me, the crowd's shocked faces, my calm response about the 24-hour deadline. Social media is calling it a real-life Cinderella story, but with the roles reversed. By noon, Victoria's social media accounts had been overwhelmed. Her TikTok comments section was brutal.
Girl, you just humiliated yourself in front of the entire city. Imagine calling a millionaire philanthropist worthless trash. This is what happens when you judge people by their clothes. The second-hand embarrassment is real. Her Instagram post from the gala, a selfie captioned, "Hosting elegance at our beautiful home," now had thousands of responses. Not your home, sis. His house, his rules, remember? The karma is real. This aged like milk in the sun. By Sunday afternoon, Victoria's carefully curated online presence was in ruins. She'd lost 12,000 followers in 18 hours. Brands that had been courting her for partnerships went silent. But the real consequences were just beginning. Monday morning, I got a call from the country club. Mr. Davis, this is Margaret Foster, membership director. We understand there was some confusion about your family's status with us.
What kind of confusion?
Well, it seems Mrs. Victoria Davis has been representing herself as the primary member of your account. Is that so? She's charged over $15,000 in dining and spa services to your membership this year. Interesting. I'd never authorized a membership for Victoria. Mrs. Foster, could you check when that membership was established? Certainly. It shows here that James Davis was added as a family member in 2021, and Victoria was added as his spouse. And who authorized Victoria's addition? A pause. It appears she added herself using James's member privileges. I see. Please remove Victoria from the account immediately. Of course, sir. And sir, we'd like to discuss upgrading your membership to our Founders Circle level. Complimentary, of course. Tuesday brought more calls. Mr. Davis, this is David Morrison from Morrison Mercedes. We need to discuss Mrs. Davis's lease.
What about it? Well, she's 3 months behind on payments. She told us you'd be covering the balance. I laughed. Actually laughed. Mr. Morrison, I will not be covering any balance. Do whatever you normally do with delinquent accounts. We'll need to repossess the vehicle. That's between you and Victoria. Wednesday, my usual appointment day, brought the most satisfying call of all. Mr. Davis, this is Ashley from Pure Wellness Yoga Studio. Ashley, one of Victoria's wine night friends. Yes? I'm calling because Victoria Davis has been telling people that you're planning to invest in our studio. Has she? She says you're interested in our expansion plans, that you want to fund a new location. Miss Ashley, let me be very clear. I have no interest in investing in anything connected to Victoria. Oh, I see. Because she's been promising our investors that family money would cover our shortfall. What shortfall? We're about $60,000 behind on our lease. Victoria said not to worry, that her family would handle it. I would suggest finding other sources of funding. By Thursday, the full scope of Victoria's deceptions was clear. She'd been name-dropping me around town for months, implying that family money backed her lifestyle. The yoga studio, her personal trainer, her hairdresser, even her therapist, all had been told that the Davis family would cover mounting bills. She'd been living on credit, using my reputation as collateral. Friday morning, Victoria called. Billy, we need to talk. Do we? My lawyer says you can't just throw me out without proper notice. Your lawyer is correct. 30 days' notice is legally required. So I can stay? You can stay in the garage apartment for 30 days. The main house remains off limits. Billy, please. I've lost everything. My followers, my brand partnerships, my friends. Everyone in town is talking about me.
Good. Good? Victoria, for 3 years you made me invisible. Now you know what that feels like. But I've learned my lesson. I understand now. No, Victoria. You understand that I have money. That's not the same thing as understanding that you were wrong. What's the difference? The difference is that if I were still poor, you'd still think you were right. The line went quiet. 30 days, Victoria. Use them wisely. 30 days later, Victoria moved out. She found an apartment across town, 1 bedroom, 800 square feet. A far cry from the 8-bedroom mansion she'd called home. James made his choice too. He stayed. Dad, he told me on moving day, I'm sorry, I should have stood up for you years ago. Why didn't you? Because it was easier not to. Victoria made it clear that defending you meant problems for me. And now? Now I realize what kind of person chooses ease over doing what's right. We spent the next month rebuilding our relationship, having breakfast together, watching the evening news, simple things that had been impossible when Victoria controlled the house. In December, the city held a ceremony to officially recognize my contributions. They wanted to name the new community center after me. I said no. Name it after Margaret, I told them. My wife. She's the one who taught me about generosity. The Margaret Davis Community Center opened in March. Victoria wasn't invited to the dedication, but here's what surprised me. I felt no satisfaction in her exile, no joy in her fall from grace. I felt relief. Relief that I no longer had to hide who I was. Relief that kindness was no longer seen as weakness in my own home. Relief that I could finally use my resources openly to help people. The Hope Foundation became public. Donations from other community members poured in. Not millions. Most people don't have millions. But $10 here, $50 there. People who wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. James took over much of the foundation's daily operations. He had a gift for organizing that I'd never noticed before. Perhaps because he'd never had the chance to show it. Dad, he said one evening as we reviewed grant applications, can I ask you something? Why didn't you tell me about the lottery win? I thought about that for a long time, because I was afraid it would change how you saw me. I wanted you to love me for who I was, not what I had. But you let Victoria treat you terribly for 3 years. I did, and that was my mistake. I thought tolerance was the same as love. It isn't. What's the difference? Love sets boundaries, James. Love says this is acceptable and this isn't. I should have set those boundaries on day one. If you're watching this, remember, your worth isn't determined by what you own or what you've achieved. It's determined by how you treat people when you think nobody's watching. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to accept disrespect. Even from family, especially from family. Subscribe if this story meant something to you and let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well.